And welcome to episode 92 of the Ski Podcast. And thanks for joining us today, listener. Today, we're going to be chatting about Andermatt, LISTEX, and lots about Scotland, including the Nevis Range and the Mighty Co event. We have snow reports from around the Alps. Plus, we're finding out about when accidents on the piste are most likely to occur. But I would like to start off today with some news hot off the press. Listener, you've made the right choice. You are officially listening to the best Wintersports podcast, and that is according to over 20,000 voters in the Sports Podcast Awards. It was only announced last night, so I'm still taking it in a bit, but I'd like to thank everyone who voted for us, all of the contributors and interviewers who've joined me. And if you're a long-time listener, hopefully you'll agree, and if you're new to the pod, well, listen to the end and you can decide for yourself. Now, I'd like to thank Switzerland Tourism, who've supported the Ski Podcast through most of our journey. This year marks the 175th anniversary of the Swiss Railway. Back in 1847, the first Swiss train route ran between Zurich and Baden. I love traveling by train, particularly in Switzerland. There's lots of videos you can look at on the Skipedia YouTube channel. Give it a go yourself. This summer, there'll be all sorts of events celebrating that anniversary. My name is Iain Martin. I'd like to introduce my guest today. Firstly, I'm delighted to welcome for the first time Babsi Lapwood from the Mountain Trade Network. How are you, Babsi?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And also, I'm joined today by our regulars, Al Morgan from SkiKitInfo. Hi, Al.
Hi, Ian. Morning.
And Katie Crowe from Battleface Travel Insurance. Hi, Katie.
Hi, good morning.
Now, Katie, I'm going to exclude you from this question because I happen to know that you're leaving for Chamonix imminently, and that will be your first ski trip for a couple of years. Katie's looking very excited about that on the screen right now. But let's ask my guests when they skied or snowboarded last. Let's start with you, Babsi. When were you last on snow?
February half term with the whole family, and we went to the Dolomites.
Yeah, and I think very kindly you sent us in a report there because you're in Sud Tirol, is that right?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, and was that your first trip for a few years, that particular one?
No, we also went in January to Tirol.
Brilliant. So you've done well. I mean, I'm also going to be skiing with the family a couple of times this year. And I think, that's possibly indicative of all of that pent up demand from people who missed holidays in the previous season. So that was a couple of months ago now, I guess. And what about you, Al? I think you've skied most recently out of all of us.
Yeah, I drove back on Sunday night from Scotland skiing in the east and the west. And it was, epic. It was awesome.
Excellent. Well, we're going to talk to you in a lot more detail about that shortly. I do notice that there has been some fresh snowfall in Scotland just now, and also in the Lake District. Long-time listeners might remember when I interviewed Simon Burgess about skiing on the raised ski lift in the Lake District, and they have a webcam that goes out on Twitter. I noticed they've probably just about got enough snow to ski on at the moment. But at this point, I'd like to just bring in Katie from Battleface Travel Insurance. For a lot of our time in the podcast, we've been talking about all the rules and regulations and stuff like that. But we've decided to put that on the back burner for a while. And last week, we talked about the cost of being lifted off the mountain and how unbelievably a lot of people don't actually have specific ski insurance. But right at the end of that, you mentioned you had some research about when accidents are most likely to occur. And I wondered if you could give us an insight on that.
Yeah, that's right, Ian. As we all know, skiing can be considered as an extreme sport. And the American Orthopedic Society for Sports Medicine notes that skiing-related injuries are most likely to occur on the first day of the ski week, in the early morning when the skier is not actually warmed up, and in the late morning and late in the day when the fatigue sets in and you just do that one more run moment. And during the afternoon, the temperature starts to cool down. So the terrain can get a little bit rockier and a little bit skied out. So the slopes can become a little bit more difficult. And the first thing that could kind of happen is muscle fatigue. Also notes that the ACL tear is one of the most common injuries as it holds the muscles together. And if the muscles are fatigued at the end of the day, too much tension is put on the ligaments, and that can often be the first thing to go.
Well, that's a lot of information there to take in. I mean, you covered quite a few times in the day. You mentioned like that first run. I guess the importance of warming up, particularly if you haven't skied for a while. There might be some people going out this Easter, and I'm going out to Les Deux Alpes in a week's time, and we're going with a few other families. Most of those people haven't skied for 2 years. So the advice there would be to make sure that they are fully warmed up before they start off skiing, particularly like with a gap like that.
Absolutely. I mean, warming up is absolutely essential. Doing slow, kind of green, blue runs on your first day, not kind of doing anything too wild, just taking it really easy and, really take notice of the safety rules. Don't go off piste on your first day, just take it easy, just ease yourself into it. Obviously, a lot of people haven't been skiing for quite a long time, myself included. So it's really, really important to do that warm up.
So you're going to be taking it easy. I can imagine my friends, the other parents, will be taking it easy. Might have trouble getting the kids to slow down and not to shoot off straight away. They may be a bit more bendy and flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've actually been doing some personal training sessions in the run up to my ski trip, because I just wanted to kind of really make sure that I'm getting my core muscles moving, in advance of my trip. Kind of want to really boost my physical fitness before I go. That
makes a lot of sense. Well, anecdotally, I can tell you that actually my mum came out to visit me one year when I was doing ski seasons, and she actually injured herself on the first run of the day. So I pretty much suspect that she didn't warm up properly. I mean, she was maybe unlucky. It was the first run of the day. So that is really important. Do you want to mention something about kit as well?
Yes, absolutely. In addition, having the right kit is really, really important. It needs to fit properly, and you need to make sure your skis are the right length for your ski level. So, usually hire shops they do properly measure your boots and skis and poles. But if you have any kind of issues, you definitely should go back at the end of the day to check in with the ski hire shop and get, improved kit, or change your kit as needs must.
Yeah, well, Alan and I have discussed this at length before, and listener, I'll put a link into the show notes, but we've discussed before. There you go. I've just found it. Episode 81. What length skis should I get? And in fact, only a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about, changing your boots during the course of the week. Which obviously, if you're hiring with Intersport, you can change your skis and your boots anytime that you want during the week. What about accidents on the slopes? Babsi, you mentioned to me in the green room earlier that you had an altercation with a snowboarder.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was about the time of the day, or was that, about, maybe they weren't paying attention to slope etiquette?
I think it was just, sort of at the bottom, everybody coming together, and and he just went across the slope, and I was literally behind him, and I couldn't avoid him, and my pole actually snapped, and
blimey, okay,
I fell on my head, and obviously luckily I had a really good helmet, and James was behind me, so he actually thought I broke something, but I didn't. So
gosh, well, I'm delighted to hear you're okay. Helmets, that's something else we talked about, episode 88, where I think when Chemi Alcott was on the show. We had that whole discussion about that. So I think, the key is that, make sure you've got the right kit. Don't be afraid about changing it, and do your warm-ups. Katie?
Yeah, I think also, the key is don't ski when you're tired. Take a break, You don't have to ski every hour of the day, and make sure you're properly hydrated. And obviously don't consume alcohol and ski. Not only are you more likely to become hydrated and tired, but it can lead to recklessness and accidents. And your travel insurance is unlikely to cover you if you're drunk.
That is probably the most important point that you can make. If you're saying, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have a drink. A lot of people might disagree with that, but they may not have considered that side of things. And, I'm personally, I don't really, drink very much anyway, but I certainly wouldn't have an alcoholic drink on the mountain. It's not my sort of thing. Back in the day, maybe. However, if you talk about injuries and alcohol on the mountain, one classic case where this continues to be an issue is in St. Anton. These the Mousevert and the KK on the opposite sides of the slopes on the way down, two very famous après ski bars. And people, get very, very drunk there, have great fun dancing on the tables and everything. And I believe that's all back happening again post-COVID. But then sometimes, they ski down, and that's actually not so bad. But some people sled down, toboggan down from there, and it can be almost impossible to stop yourself. And every season there are stories of people who go down on toboggans, end up scooting over a little ridge at the bottom and land in the tennis courts, which isn't a very comfy landing. So we'll put all of that behind us. Just say, be sensible. Think about it, particularly in that first run of the day, not overdoing it, towards the end of the day. It's a holiday. You've got plenty of time. I'm not really a first to last lifter kind of person myself. But, if you're going out in April, you've got lovely, nice, hopefully nice, warm sunshine, although it is very cold right now. We'll come on to that. That's brilliant, Katie. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you so much.
We mentioned people are going out, and actually I mentioned you typically expect in spring longer days, warmer days, but suddenly the temperature has actually dropped in most of the Alps at the moment, and we have some snow reports from some of our regular contributors. We've got Dave from Snow Pro Ski School, Alex from Tip Top Ski Coaching in Les Alpes, Steve Angus, another instructor in Val d'Isère, and Elena Protopau from Tirol.
Hello Ian, it's Dave Burrows from Snow Pro Ski School. I'm here on my own today. I'm sitting on the lonely side of the hill doing gate control for a ski race for one of the schools that we work with. From my vantage point here, I can see all the way down the Morjan Valley and then over into the Vallée d'Abondance on the French side, and I can see a cloud. And this is like a big thing here because I haven't seen a cloud for about a month. Like, we've had such an amazing period of high pressure that's just sat over Switzerland. The only problem with it is that it hasn't been accompanied anymore as the season's going on. Hasn't been accompanied by these sort of super low temperatures. But the temperature, so it's been a bit slushy the last couple of weeks. For all those that have been out there, they will have known that, slushy in the afternoon. But actually now the temperatures are starting to drop again. So it's freezing overnight. The piste here for the race is in absolutely amazing condition in Morjan. And so it's been all right. Tourists have loved it. All the clients have loved it. Everyone, people prefer in general. They like to say that they're powder hounds, but people prefer in general blue skies to big snow, which is kind of the inverse to all the ski instructors and all the locals. So anyway, so yeah, we're all doing great out here. We're just waiting for the Easter's a bit late this year, but we've got some bookings for early April into mid-April, and then the season's going to be sort of drawing itself to a close. So hope you're all well here. Loads of snow still in the Porte de Soleil. A few bare patches here and there, but where there are shady slopes, the conditions are great. More snow coming towards the end of this week. So hello to all your listeners. Keep up the good work, and I will see you soon.
Good morning, this is Alex Armand from Les Alpes and Tip Top Ski Coaching with an update of our snow conditions and weather conditions. So quite excitingly, having been through springtime already here in Les Alpes, we have gone back to winter with freezing levels dropping to 800 metres today. Snow having fallen yesterday, the day before, and forecast to fall today and tomorrow, with a light wind from the north. And we're looking at up to 20-30 centimetres falling over the next couple of days, which is fantastic news for the Easter holidays. The snow that's already fallen has completely refreshed the pistes. The pistes are in fantastic condition. We need the rest to fall for the off-piste to be refreshed, but we're looking forward to getting some powder days next week. Thank you very much.
Well, this is not an April Fool's joke. Poisson avril, as the French would say. Here in Val d'Isère, it is snowing this morning. We've had a little top-up of snow, 2 or 3 centimetres overnight. Temperatures have dropped, and they are going to continue to drop. Snow is settling all the way down to resort, and it really is looking almost like a winter wonderland once again. Temperatures should remain cold for another couple of days, and the piste conditions have really had a lovely freshen up with this snow, and likewise with the off-piste as well. I think we're going to have some fantastic conditions when all this snow is bashed down. For those early rides, I'm looking at the Olympic lift this morning. A good sort of 50 to 100 people very keen to get up there to make the most of these April fresh powder conditions. It's going to remain like this right the way through the weekend and into the main Easter holiday week next week. For those people that are coming out, then you're assured of fantastic conditions with cold, crisp nights setting up for some beautiful spring-like conditions throughout the week. So from Val d'Isère, where it is a return to winter, get your skis waxed and get your stuff on, because it's going to be a fantastic Easter coming up for those of you who are out here or coming out here to the high resorts on holiday.
Hi everybody, it's Elena speaking from the Tour Tourist Board. So yeah, we had an had that much snow recently, but the good thing is that today it snowed in many Tyrolean regions such as Ischgl, St. Anton, Kitzbühel, and further ski resorts. So we are really happy for the end of the season. Also, as we welcomed a lot of guests who loved to ski in the late season and also who are ready for Eastern skiing. So really looking forward to welcome more guests and to more snow.
Right, I mentioned in the last episode that I was in Andermatt, and I really wanted to kind of save this section for this episode to do it justice rather than just to kind of cut it short. It was really poignant timing for me going out to Andermatt because it was almost exactly 2 years to the day after I arrived in Andermatt when Switzerland announced all their lifts were going to close because of COVID. It was back in March 2020. So it was really lovely to be there again and have the opportunity to see the full area. I travelled out there by train. There's a great video, I think, about that. It took me 10 hours from St Pancras to Andermatt direct. And just to give you a bit of the background into Andermatt, if you're not familiar with it, it really has been quite an important resort strategically, or an important town strategically in history, because it falls in between several different valleys. So we did actually find that, lots of British people went there in those early days of mountaineering. Queen Victoria, stayed there in the 19th century. But gradually, as the railways came in and tunnels were made, the town got cut out completely. And instead of people stopping in the town on their way, crossing passes, traveling into Italy and other areas of Switzerland, it became a bit of a backwater. And the army ended up taking over the resort and using it as one of their massive bases. So the resort was entirely dependent on the army. And then the army withdrew and it started to go into a bit of a depression. They brought in an Egyptian property developer as a consultant to get his ideas for what they should do. And he looked at this valley and thought, this is so underutilized. It's such a brilliant area. It would be perfect to develop as a resort, and actually suggested that himself. The town had a referendum, decided this is better than just stagnating. And consequently, it's just gone through this unbelievable renaissance, whereby the ski area has multiplied hugely. They've put in lots and lots of new lifts over on the Descentis side. The main ski area that has always existed there has loads and loads of off-piste, and always had this history of being a great off-piste area. But now they've got loads of really good piste skiing as well. But predominantly, they have all this property that they're building there. And people have been buying a property, and they're developing a lot of this area that actually sat on top of what used to be a military firing range. So it wasn't being used at all. They built a golf course there, and it's been incredibly successful. They basically sold everything that they've got already, partly because they managed to, I can't exactly remember now how they managed to do this, but partly because they've managed to get the rules changed so that overseas people can buy properties, because in Switzerland, a lot of rules preventing people from outside of Switzerland buying properties there. So it's really been a tremendous success. It's got a mix of everything. I personally was there for the ski touring, which is my sort of thing. Went out with a brilliant guy called Florian Tresch, who took me up and down through the Gotthard Pass, over to the bottom of the Furka Pass. The Furka Pass, you might know because that's where Sean Connery in the movie Goldfinger drives down the hairpin bends. Most famous for that. These days you can take a train through the tunnel and avoid that. Skied all of that area, and it was really just gorgeous to be out for so many hours in a row without seeing any other people, just being away from all of the main ski areas completely. What a pleasure that was. Yet you can do that. You can do all the free ride skiing, etc. Yet on the main area, the main ski area over on, Descentis Cedrun area, they've got a Michelin star restaurant. You can pick up a bit of everything in Andermatt. I was primarily there really to look at their sustainability side of things. Regular listeners to the show will have heard me talk about Swisstainable, the Swiss project for sustainability. that they're using to try and position Switzerland as the number one sustainable destination in the world. And Andermatt have their own policy called Andermatt Responsible. And I was really just talking to them about how they do that. You know, they work a lot with hydroelectrics. They actually use a lot of the infrastructure left over from the army, and they have a wood chip-fired power plant, so all of their heating comes from that. They've got a lot of wind turbines that they've put up, which is quite good, because there is some objection to putting up wind turbines in alpine areas, and that's producing around a third of their power requirements. So they're doing some really good stuff. So I'm going to write about that for Skier and Snowboarder magazine, and when that eventually comes out in the autumn, you can put a link in. But since I've been there, the most interesting thing that came out earlier this week is that Vail Resorts, the massive US corporation, have seen that potential as well. And last week, they arranged to buy 55% of Andermatt. And that is their first investment in Europe. And this is a company that owns Breckenridge, Keystone, Heavenly, Beaver Creek, Vail, obviously, as well, Park City over in Utah. And this is their first investment in Europe. So really, really very interesting development.
I think that's really exciting, because we've seen when North American resorts have invested in European resorts, and actually they've been lifted. If we look at what happened with Resort 1950, when I think it was Whistler Resorts invested in it, then that was a fantastic little hub in that part of the ski area. And knowing Vail Resorts and having skied Vail and known about the other resorts they own in North America, this is actually really exciting. I don't think people should be worried about this. There's going to be investment coming in, and actually it's a real opportunity.
I'm trying to remember, it's the Epic Pass, I think, that Vail Resorts offer. So I would imagine Andermatt will be included in the Epic Pass. So it'll end up with more people going over from North America or sharing between them. This is one of those passes that you can buy that covers all of the resorts that they own. So Americans, will have that included. They'll be able to come over to Andermatt and do a couple of days there. It's very close to Zurich, so that could be really interesting as well.
And that journey through Zurich is so easy. It's fantastic to arrive in the airport and get onto the train, and they are great trains. But also,
you don't even need to arrive at the airport, Al. You can arrive as I did. To,
but
Zurich
railway in the train,
but just change trains there as well. But you're right.
Always.
It's very, very, very straightforward to get there. And the only thing I'd say about the trains is that you can't quite go direct, because you have to change at a minimum once, because the gauge of the track changes. Because it's a regular train, then you go onto a rack cog railway, so you do have to change trains. But it's not a big deal, as with everything with the trains in Switzerland. They are perfectly timed to combine. So that was fascinating being out in Andermatt, and I really enjoyed talking to them about sustainability. But Andermatt are not the only resort looking at their sustainability at the moment. Last week, I chatted with Chris O'Brien, who's the MD at the Nevis Range in Scotland, about their policy. Great. Well, I'm delighted to be joined today by Chris O'Brien, who is the Managing Director of the Nevis Range. How are you today, Chris?
Very well. Thank you for inviting me to speak to you. It's a genuine pleasure, and looking forward to our chat.
Now, you are up at the Nevis Range right now. Do you want to just tell us where it is, a little bit about the ski area, and perhaps what the current conditions are like?
Absolutely. So we're about 7 miles outside of Fort William. It's an absolutely staggeringly beautiful day here today. I would say conditions are a little bit icy up there, but there's still plenty of fun to be had. And, particularly the summit and our Goose area, I've still got really, really good snow on them. And so hopefully we can see a few more people up the hill over the course of the rest of the week.
Excellent. I actually looked on your Facebook page this morning, and I saw a really beautiful picture that someone had taken already from today. So as you say, it looks like a really stunning day.
It is. It's stunning. I can assure you that once we've had our chat, I'll certainly be finding my way up the hill for the rest of the day.
Excellent. Okay. And what kind of, to give an idea to people who are not familiar with the area, what kind of size area is it?
Huge, really. We've got 11 lifts. We're not operating all of them right now. We're operating what, if you like, the arterial lifts to get everybody around there. So our Alpha area, Quad area, Summit and Goose, which is the backbone of the company. In fact, we actually only a couple of weeks ago had our busiest day on the hill for 10 years, busiest winter day, that is, where we had 2,000 people up there all enjoying themselves. So, there's a fair old capacity that we can get. So it's all served by our mountain gondola, which is probably the unique feature that we've got. And it's actually been our saving grace in many ways, because the mountain gondola has become a tourist attraction in its own right, and is actually the the biggest part of the company is the process of getting tourists up the hill. But it does make it that little bit more pleasant if you've got one of those good Scottish skiing days where you've got a little bit of shelter on your way up the hill anyway.
Yeah, I think I probably know what you talk about the Scottish skiing days. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, Chris, was I read an article about the measures that Nevis Range are taking from a sustainability point of view, and there's a goal, or I believe maybe you've already decided that the resort is carbon neutral, and I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about how you've moved towards that, and indeed how that's accredited.
We are carbon neutral already. We have a goal of becoming truly net zero within the next 2 years, and it drives every part of our philosophy and who we are. And I'll talk very briefly about how we got that accredited, but if you don't want to, kind of like to describe that journey to you and really the benefits that's coming, and a lot of soft benefits actually that maybe you wouldn't have thought about or maybe people would have associated. But we decided probably about 12 months ago, we've always had that kind of philosophy of we want to be the best company we can be. But really, we wanted to move that beyond an ambition and nice thoughts and actually start measuring it and doing it properly. And it actually began with fair work and living wage. So we became a living wage employer, we became a fair work employer, and that philosophy really started to change who we were. To become carbon neutral, there are so many tools out there that you can use to assess it. And it's actually a little bit overwhelming. And it can be very difficult to understand how to begin that process. So we actually engaged with a company south of the border, as it happens, called carbonfootprint.com. We got them in to help us assess what are we actually doing. And I can, to cut the long part of the story very short, we were actually staggered by how well we were already doing. And that was a big part of this process for us. So, for example, of the lifts that we have on the hill, only one of the lifts isn't electrified, and that lift isn't actually running at the moment. So it's an electrical supply that's up there. In terms of our base station, several years ago, we actually built our own hydroelectric plant, and that supplies about 60% of the energy. Now, we did actually sell that plant to another company a few years ago, but part of the deal was that we could still buy all of the power that they could give us from that plant at a price that was significantly cheaper than the grid. So it effectively created investment capital for us. No,
excellent. And you're saying in relation to that hydro plant, then 60% of all your electricity is renewable on that basis already?
Yes, that's right. And if you're starting from that point, it's not that a bigger journey to go on to actually achieve the neutrality. In many ways, it's relatively simple to make some of those changes to go towards carbon neutrality, but you've got to look at your supply chain as well, right? And this is where some of the soft benefits started coming in for us. So we looked at our supply chain and we wanted to understand their carbon impact, because that's the true impact of what's going on in your business, right? It's also who you're buying from. The first thing that changed for us was we thought, okay, if we're going to do this properly, we can only work with people who share our values. And that led to some really tough choices. We had to stop working with some suppliers and we started working with a lot of new ones. But the fantastic benefit is when you're working with people where your philosophies are already aligned, there's almost no adversarial relationships within your business universe, if you like. So genuinely working with other people is an absolute pleasure. And that totally changes the way you go about things. Your negotiations with people, they don't really start with price anymore. They start about who you are. And what a wonderful place that is to start from. And it totally changes where you're going.
I mean, that sounds obviously the great starting point to come from. And I know there's lots of developments that you're doing now because you're redeveloping that base station at the moment. And I think from what I read or how I understand it, is the goal is to make the whole of that base station redevelopment carbon neutral as well. How are you doing that?
Combination of things. So you're right, we have got a major development going on down here. We're building a 22-bedroom hotel, a 24-bedroom bunkhouse. We're building a new bike shop area. We've got a restaurant being built. We're actually building a children's activity area as well, which will feature a child-led climbing wall. And we're also building a soft play area. And we are currently working on plans for an apprentice academy at the base station as well. So lots of development going on. Now, how we actually get that to carbon neutral, a lot of that is the future of the project. Where are we getting the energy from? The efficiency of the building and things like that, our buying choices. And during the project itself, we're minimizing carbon impact by using Scottish suppliers for basically everything. Our main contractor is based just outside of Edinburgh. And we're also, for the duration of the project, using some carbon offsets as well. But crucially, on the carbon offsets, we're investing in gold standard UK-based carbon offsets that involve planting of trees within the UK, so that we can be absolutely certain of the validity of the offset.
Cool. Okay. I mean, that's really interesting. We could talk about offsets for a long time, but that sounds like a very good way to treat it. I also believe that you have a plan for zero waste as well.
We've almost achieved zero waste in a number of sections of the business, actually. So our cafes, for example, it's only compostable packaging. We have a composter on site. We have zero single-use plastic on site. We take advantage of using glass and easy to recycle cans and things like that. So already the cafes are there, right? The challenge is to get the rest of the business to zero waste.
And I think, a thought that has crossed my mind since we've been having our conversation is you're obviously based near Fort William. I've been looking at coming up to Scotland the last couple of years, and I haven't quite been able to do it, but I prefer to travel by train. And I think you can get the Caledonian Express direct to Fort William, can't you? Do you have any link up with train travel for discount on lift passes or anything like that?
We don't have a discount relationship at the moment. That's certainly something I'll be willing to explore. We've got a long-standing relationship with Caledonian Sleeper. We always think it's a great service to use because you can actually day trip effectively using the Sleeper as your hotel. And is there anything more romantic than a dinner in the Caledonian Sleeper lit by Morrison's car park?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a day that would be quite a journey, although I guess it depends where you're coming from. You could be talking about, coming from Edinburgh or something like that. But, I think for most ski resorts, a lot of the things they really have to focus on when they're looking to try and become carbon neutral is the cost of travel to the resort, the carbon cost of travel to the resort itself, because different surveys show that might be 50 to 70% of the carbon cost of the holiday. So, things like that. And I noticed that you have plans for EV chargers, or maybe have EV chargers already in the car park there.
So we already have EV chargers. We've had them in for 3 years, actually. So, it's something we truly want to encourage is to people to use electrical means to get here. Beyond that, we actually have, we're here to talk about skiing today, but we've got 60 kilometers of bike trails at Nevis Range, and actually we have a really solid bike path link to Fort William train station and out to Speen Bridge. They've been working on active travel coaches, so you can get your bikes on, you can get your skis on, and things like that. But I mean, if you're prepared to ride to Nevis Range, there's a great network of trails that we've spent a lot of money making sure that you can do that easily.
That's brilliant, Chris. Thanks very much for that. It's a really interesting insight into the carbon neutral situation at Nevis Range, and I'm sure there's some useful ideas there for other resorts as well. And I wish you all continued progress with the development of the new base station and your continued journey towards sustainability. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. See you on the hill soon.
So that was really interesting. Now, Al, you mentioned to me earlier that you actually skied in the Nevis Range recently. You've been on this big road trip around Scotland. So let's stay in Scotland. Let's start with the snow. What was it like while you were up there?
surprisingly good. I thought, given the lack of snowfall, not just in Europe, but in Scotland this season, it's been a bit thin in terms of how much snow has fallen, that it was going to be a bit patchy. And yes, lower down it was. But if you were above 600-700 meters, the snow conditions were just absolutely incredible. So if you were happy to hike a little or skin a little, the skiing was absolutely phenomenal. And if we look at Nevis Range, so on about a week ago on Friday, while I was there, we skied the back corries, and it was a bit pea soup. That was the one cloudy day we had. But then when we got to the top, there's a little wind lip to drop in. Skies cleared, the sun came out, and it was just heavenly.
Cool. That sounds great. And so, as your trip, then, how long were you up in Scotland for?
9 days of skiing back to back, that's pretty unusual for Scotland. But we were blessed with sunshine for almost every day.
Wow. I'm very jealous because I've been trying to get that trip in. I know that one of the reasons that you went there specifically was to go and visit the Mighty Co event, and we interviewed Neil Dalgleish, the organizer of that, in episode 89. Do you want to just explain a little bit about what that event is and what it was like being there?
So brands were there so that people could come and have a go on the product or look at the product. So some brands had kit that you could ski on, mainly skis, not boots. And then other brands were there with product for you to just look at. So Head Skis up there with kit and showing people their range. There was lots of brands there. And then there was other things, accessories. So, arcade belts and things were there and selling kit. But really, it was a bit of a mountain festival. It had a fantastic vibe. There was music going on. There was food. There was a lot of people. So it was up by the Plateau Cafe. So you had to get the chairlift up or hike up if you wanted. But the resort had done a fantastic job of maintaining runs back to the cafe, which was a bit thin there. Once you got another 50 meters higher, then the skiing was awesome. And Flypaper, a really famous run at Glencoe, was open with amazing skiing. I don't know how many times I did that run, but it was absolutely fantastic. And a theme of the weekend was ski touring. You and I have spoken about ski touring a lot on the podcast, but it was fantastic to see people coming up and having a go. You bought a lift pass, you paid another £5 to get into the Mighty Co, and then you could access, there was Nigel Shepherd up with Salomon, and then Glenmore Lodge had Andy Townsend over with Atomic, and he was taking customers out to go touring, and everybody that I spoke to up there having a go at it just had the best time.
Excellent. I mean, that sounds good. So you had really good weather. The snow was okay. Am I right in thinking that that cafe had opened that particular weekend, or it's specific to opening around the time
so
of
the
the
cafe at
Mighty
the bottom of the access chair. So from the car park, there's a double chairlift that runs up the mountain, and the cafe at the bottom had opened 2 days before the event. It was running a little late in opening, but it is just, the cafe is beautiful. It's really big, spacious and open. We've got good food on offer, and the Mighty Co with, I think, Ellis Brigham and North Face ran a movie night there. So yeah, it was fantastic.
Excellent. And what sort of turnout were you looking at there? I mean, could you give us an idea of roughly how many people had turned up, and how that, I wouldn't even know how that compared to their normal weekends?
Yeah, so my understanding is that the resort was completely sold out for that weekend. How many that is, I did try and find this figure out. I don't have it yet. I'm waiting for it from the Mighty Co. But there must have been a few thousand people there over the weekend. I mean, it was the on the hill, it didn't feel busy. It felt, like they were really active, which was great. A lot of people were just hanging around the kind of festival village, which is why it had such a fantastic vibe. But yeah, it was awesome to see so many people out enjoying Scotland, not just from Scotland. They're driven in from other parts of the UK, and people had come kind of 5 hours journey from some of the outer isles in Scotland to come to the event.
Really? People had come up from England as well, from the south as well?
Yeah, absolutely right.
Excellent. And so that was one of the trips. And just to, get this right, the geography in my mind, if I'm looking at a map of Great Britain at the moment, over on the left-hand side, the west, we've got, Glencoe and Nevis Range, but you also said you skied over in the east side as well?
Yeah, so I was in the Aviemore area for a lot of the week before. So the weekend before the Mighty Co was another event. So Glenmore Lodge is the National Outdoor Training Centre in Scotland, and they do a lot of ski activities too. So on that weekend, the weekend of the 19th to 20th of March, Glenmore Lodge ran their Wild Weekend, which is a kind of a main point of their skiing winter calendar. And again, this is just letting people know what ski touring is. It's not about full-on ski touring, going for hours, really sweaty, loads of up. It's just about fun and getting onto the kit, learning how the kit uses. This was a strange winter. Normally they'd have around 140, 150 people, but because we are just coming out of the kind of COVID restrictions in Scotland, there were fewer. So there were about 40, 50 consumers there. And again, they were just blessed with some amazing weather. On the Saturday, not much wind, really sunny. On the Sunday, it was a bit more classic Scotland with 50 to 60 miles an hour wind. So it was a bit of a slog going into it. And you know what? Even though it was a bit brutal, everybody came back with the biggest grins. I was just super impressed with it, with the consumers that were up there.
Right. Okay. Making me again quite jealous, because I think it was last year I had a press trip lined up to go to Glenmore Lodge, and I was really looking forward to that. But, you know, all the COVID restrictions meant it didn't happen. But I did do a little bit of looking into it.
They've got some fantastic rooms because they've had a lot of work done in the centre. So it's expanded. It's got much bigger. So on a normal Wild Weekend, they can fill the whole centre. And, you know, they've got dry tool climbing walls. They've got all sorts of activities that go in there. And it's not just skiing that happens. A lot of Sports Scotland kind of activities are based there, whether it be paddling, mountain biking, climbing, etc. So it's a bit more, but not quite luxury, but it's a bit better prepared for hosting customers than you might think of a youth hostel. So the food is amazing. The cakes, I love cake, but the cake was just awesome. So yeah, it serves the clients there fantastically well. Great food, easy access to the mountains, and just amazing views.
Great. Okay. Well, I definitely need to get there myself to check that out. And did you also mention that you did some mountain biking while you're in Scotland as well, Al?
Yeah. So for the first time, I did some proper mountain bike touring. So from Aviemore, there's an area, well, Breriac, which is really famous. So we cycled in with skis strapped to the bikes and all the boots and things on the bikes and a backpack on. And then you skin up the escalator, and I did some skiing off the back of there. Yeah. So that was about a 30-mile day. Again, fantastic weather. Really, really lucky. It was great fun.
Sorry, what's the escalator?
The escalator is essentially, it's a bit of a gully that gets filled with snow, and yes, I suppose that's the question. It's a gully that fills with snow, and you can skin up it. And then when you ski back down it, it's just a really good pitch. You ascend quite quickly without it being punishing or tiring, and the snow came down pretty low.
Cool. Well, it sounds like a brilliant trip. And so hopefully with that, the little chat we had there about Nevis Range and understanding a little bit more about the Mighty Co and talk about Aviemore as well. Listener, you understand a little bit more about Scotland. Keep your eye on the forecast, because they actually can get really good late season skiing as well, can't they?
Yeah, it's their season typically runs November to April, but last year they were skiing in Scotland way later than that, in May, and I think some people are accessing snow even later, potentially June, July.
Yeah, for sure. Well, actually, Mike Richards, who's been on the show a whole bunch of times and has reported for us on skiing in Wales, skied in Wales in May last year, if I recall correctly. Again, you know, it wasn't possible to go skiing anywhere else. So brilliant. That's really interesting. Right, I'm going to turn now, if it's okay, to Babsi. I've listed you as being from the Mountain Trade Network. Do you just want to explain what the Mountain Trade Network is?
It's a platform for any businesses working in the mountain industry, and we connect them via our virtual meetings, as well as our live events, LISTEX and SASTEX, and the press center, where people can share all their news, and we sort of send them out as well. So it's just really connecting everyone, helping.
Yeah, so it literally is then a network for mountain trade. I've certainly been following it recently, and I found it really useful, particularly when all the rules were changing, because I think Austria were very good at updating through your network as to how things had changed, what the situation was in relation to tests and vaccinations, etc. So that was really good like that. You mentioned the live events then. Now, LISTEX, we've mentioned on the show before, and we interviewed James Gambrell, who is now with the Ski Club of Great Britain. And, so therefore, you've taken over the running of LISTEX now. LISTEX, if I recall correctly, you can tell me, does it stand for the London International Ski Travel Exchange?
It's the London International Snow Sports Trade Exchange.
There you go. Well, I was close. I've been to it loads of times. I can actually remember what it stood for. What I do know is that I've just booked my accommodation and my train to go up there in May. Do you just want to give us some details? So where is it going to be and when?
So it's on the 4th and 5th of May at Hemel Hempstead, the snow centre. So we've got LISTEX, and now we also have SASTEX, which is the summer alpine event we do, because suppliers coming over obviously to sort of promote summer and winter now. Sort of, it makes sense. It saves time and money. And a lot of the tour operators do offer obviously both now. Same as what you said about Scotland. Obviously, you want to promote all year round.
Yeah, for sure. It makes a lot of sense. And I think, although there were some events during the autumn, this will be the first time for a lot of people, I think, where they've had a chance to meet face to face and have meetings face to face. And just to clarify then, this is a trade thing. It's not for consumers, but this is how tour operators find new hotels or find new resorts that they end up including and offering to people. It's those kind of meetings we're talking about, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. So it's like a bit like speed dating. You have those pre-scheduled meetings, 20 minutes meetings, and you just sort of arrange them over the 2 days.
I've certainly found that useful before. My involvement has been more in terms of the kind of forum and the presentation side of things. And hopefully I'm going to be involved in the sustainability panel this year. And we'll be discussing that side of things. But generally, this is an opportunity for information sharing between people in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And catching up, and we just really want to help and connect everyone as well, so we have other people coming as well who just, we've got new businesses pitching at LISTEX that's hosted now by In the Snow. Yeah, it's just a bit of fun, and also the networking and the party.
Those have been really interesting before. I see you've renamed it this year, but you used to call it the Dragon's Den. Maybe you're worried about being sued now, but you get different people who are doing these startups in the ski industry who come along and do their pitch in the same way that the TV program works to a bunch of experienced people from the industry. And I don't think they actually ever commit to giving any money. Maybe Dom Killinger from In the Snow might have done that before. But it's really interesting to see these new ideas, because every year there's a whole bunch of new ideas from different people, and seeing them quizzed on those ideas and thinking for yourself, is that something, could that work? Would that kind of work? Are you allowed to tell us, who might be doing their pitches for this year?
There might be. I'm not sure. You see, I don't want to give it away because
right, okay.
Yes. So we've got a few people. It will be on the website. Dominic Perrott is going to come over, so he's going to pitch his new business.
Previously, I'm trying to think back and think of the names of some of the businesses that have been there before. But do you know if any of them have kind of gone on to be successful within the industry?
Yeah, we've had Axie Ski, we had Snow Cookie, we had obviously Snow Camp.
I've really enjoyed that particular session, and I see that session is going to be going on again. And also, there's the opportunity for people who maybe haven't been out, because it's being held at Hemel Hempstead at the Snow Centre. It is possible to go for a ski as well, or network on the slope, so to speak, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It's just all about connecting, having some fun, as well as, informative, you have business meetings. So it's just a really good event where you can catch up with lots of people over 2 days.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it. Al, will you be attending at all? Is that the sort of thing for you?
Yeah, I've been to loads of LISTEX meetings, and hopefully I'll be there in May. And I love the fact that it's at Hemel. It's a great slope, and the fact that you can actually talk about skiing and then go skiing really close to London is a fantastic opportunity.
And it's coming up in just over a month's time. That is not very long at all. We get our Easter holidays, and it might feel a bit weird going on an indoor slope after that. But I tend to be of the school of thought that any skiing at any time is good. It doesn't matter how short the slope is, etc. It's just really good to be on snow. And I'll certainly be, if I manage to get on the slope, which I hopefully will do this time round, I'll certainly include it as my days skiing during 2022. Brilliant. Will you ski yourself, Al?
If I am there, absolutely, I wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, Babsi, will you have time to get on the slopes?
I probably won't. I'll be there the day before.
Okay, you get some practice in. Cool. Okay, well, that's coming up. I'll put a link into the show notes if you are in the industry and you'd like to find out some more about that. Otherwise, reviews and comments, they are always welcome. If you're in the UK, give us a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes. If you're not in the UK, send me an email, theskipodcast@gmail.com, or you can review us on Spotify as well, or wherever you download your podcasts. And stickers. Katie has been stocked up with some stickers to take to Chamonix with her. Kids said, "Are we allowed to put these up?" I said, "Of course you are. You can put those stickers anywhere you want to within reason. If you'd like some Ski Podcast stickers, then just let me know by email and I'll drop some to you and you can put them around the resort that you're going to or on your helmet or on your skis, etc. And so, coming up in our next episode then, well, Katie will be reporting on Chamonix, her first holiday for a couple of years. I'm going to Les Deux Alpes. Al, remind me where you're going at Easter time?
I'm in Valandry, which is just in the Les Arcs ski area.
Yeah, brilliant. I skied in Valandry when I was in Les Arcs in January. They've got an excellent new gondola there. Have you seen that at all?
I haven't been on it. This will be our first trip since they've installed it.
Okay, well, you can read. You can watch my review of it on the Skipedia YouTube channel because I did a little video. But at the top of it as well, I don't know if you've seen this. How old are your kids?
9 and 11.
Yeah, perfect. They've got a really good kind of alpine museum there, which gives you a bit of an insight into a lot of the local flora and fauna at the top of integrated into the top of the gondola. So, worth going to have a look at that while you're there as well.
Ace.
And Babsi, you're going out to the Alps as well, you think, for Easter? I think you said to me in the green room you haven't decided. You're just going to decide nearer the time where the best snow is.
Exactly. I mean, you're so lucky. Be able to go now. It's just wonderful.
For sure. It's just the joy, isn't it? Well, I'm going to Les Deux Alpes, and immediately after Deux Alpes, I'm going to Courchevel, where I'm going to be taking part in an event called the Dynastar X3 event, which is a kind of uphill triathlon. You start off by cycling from kind of near Bozelle, and you go like 900 meters vertical climb on the bike to Courchevel 1850. And then there's a transition in 1850. Then you do a run that takes in a couple of 100 meters of vertical. And then you ski tour from 1850 to Celia, another kind of 950. So that should be pretty interesting, trying to train for that down at sea level. That's why I was ski touring in Andermatt. So I'll be reporting on that one in the next podcast as well. And listen, that will probably come in 3 weeks' time to allow for Easter and everything like that. So I do enjoy listening to all feedback from the show. You can follow me at Skipedia and the podcast at the Ski Podcast. But for now, I'd like to thank Switzerland Tourism for sponsoring the show and thank my guest today, Babsi.
Thank you very much for having me.
Katie.
It's been a pleasure as always. Thanks, Ian.
And Al.
Thanks, Ian. It's been awesome.
Finally, listener, thank you for joining us. And until next time, goodbye. And finally, listener, just to let you know that if you have enjoyed this podcast, you are very welcome to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/the Ski Podcast. All contributions are very welcome. Thank you very much.